Hi guys, and welcome back to a new video. In today's video, I want to talk about a very important topic, or at least I think this is an important topic and something that I've seen many of you discussing online. And this is to know whether Blizzard is maybe pushing a little bit too much the different modes and different activities that rewards you with some rare and what are qualified, sometimes prestigious rewards very easily by simply doing something super easy in the future. So here I think some of the key examples of these recent new modes and activities that Blizzard added include, for instance, the Collector's Bounty event that allowed you to get a 5 times drop chance on all the different rare mounts from dungeons and raids from every past expansions before Dragonflight, which of course still represents a challenge because it doesn't guarantee you to get the mounts, but it definitely made it way faster and easier for players to get some of these rare mounts and also some of the transmogs that were part of the Collector's Bounty event, which creates then an incentive for players to wait for the next event in order to only start farming these different mounts at that moment. Same, we also have now the remix events. We already got the one for Mr. Pandaria, and now we have the one for Legion. And with these remix events, you can literally just buy from the vendor some of the very rare mounts from the different dungeons, raids, rare mobs, and also other activities. Here, for me, I think, again, the best example is by far the Sha mount from Mr. Pandaria, which was one of the rarest mounts in the game. And with the release of Mr. Pandaria Remix, you were able to buy it super easily at the vendor. So it really made these different mounts super trivial, even though before that they were looked as some of the rarest and most farmed mounts in the game. When it comes to the different mounts linked to the reputations, of course, we have the time walking events that always allow you to also buy all the different commendations to get all these different rep items that then allow you to unlock all these reputations super fast. We also have the Winds of Wisdom event, which recently has allowed you to get 200% extra reputation for all the different factions of Dragonflight and 100% for all the different factions of the War Within. And most likely this is something that will include other expansions in the future when it will be brought back. But again, really above that makes it so much faster to farm all these different mounts and rewards locked behind the different reputations of these respective expansions. Then next to that, when it comes to some of the rare and let's say again prestigious promotional mounts such as the trading card game mounts, now Blizzard is bringing back more and more some of these mounts and other rewards through, for instance, the trading post, Twitch drops and other promotions. So again, these items are also not really safe. And I don't think a lot of players are still really interested in purchasing them, knowing that most likely at some point they will be given for free to everyone. And so with all these different games, modes, events, and activities that will increase your chances to get some of these different rare items, your reputation gains, and all these different things, a lot of players are actually more and more incentivized to just wait for the next event to farm all these items instead of farming them right now while none of these different buffs and extra gains are available, simply because they know they will end up wasting more time and it's just easier to wait for the next event in order to get everything later on. One of the main jokes that I've seen around, for instance, the new remix format is literally people just saying, why would I farm any of the War Within mounts or even the Midnight mounts, knowing that I can just wait for the War Within remix and I'll be able to buy everything from the vendor, even the really rare mounts from the raids and dungeons. Similar, I've seen a lot of players say that they won't really farm any of the mounts, transmogs, and rare items from previous expansions until there is the next Collector's Bounty event, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense for them, and they know they will probably feel frustrated having farmed for 2 years the different items and then being able to farm them way faster during one of these different events. This is even something that Ian talked about during an interview recently ahead of the launch of Midnight, where he was asked basically if they were planning to bring back the Collector's Bounty event, and he did say that while they were happy with the results and also they know this is something that the players want, they are trying to be extremely careful because they don't want to discourage players to just actually play the game and farm all these different items outside of these different Collector's Bounty events and remix events, because otherwise they will end up killing the game because everyone will just wait. No one will have the incentives to farm anything, and especially to avoid having this feeling of frustration from the player base each time they farm something rare for a few years, and when they finally receive it, it's then made super easy to get through one of these different events. So even Ian said that this is something they know might become an issue, and that's why they're trying to regulate these different modes and events to avoid having players think that they should always wait for these different modes to be there in order to start farming all these different items. But my personal opinion is that it's already a little bit late for that. And sadly, between again Remix, Collector's Bounty event, Winds of Wisdom, and all these things, players are definitely thinking more of waiting, farming all these things later when these modes are activated, rather than doing it now. And also, I've seen a lot of players just complaining about the fact that when you have the impression that an item is going to be rare and something that will remain rare, of course you're going to put a lot of efforts trying to get it, and you will be happy in the end after farming it for 2-3 years or longer. But when after that Blizzard just decides a few months later again to put the item that you've worked so hard towards on a vendor where everyone can buy it for literally nothing, and here I'm thinking about, for instance, the different Legion remix mounts or the Mr. Panoramic remix mounts, such as, for instance, the Sha mount right here. Of course, players are gonna feel very discouraged to just play the game and farm all these different things. Here, there is also another thing that is not linked to these different modes and everything, or not directly, but something that Blizzard has been doing more and more that also contributes to this discouragement from the player base to actually farm these rare rewards and also all the different more challenging rewards. So here, a really good example, again, comes from the recent Legion remix. And that's the fact that, for instance, before that, the Urzul mount was the only model that we were able to get, and it was from Entorus. And so it was a unique model and something that you would directly recognize. And now in one expansion, we got another version, this time from the Time Walking vendor for 5,000 of the different badges, and then another version from the vendor for Remix. So as you can see, in just one expansion, this unique model now gets 2 other recorders that are super easy to get. Sure, they're still recorders, but it's still something that definitely, I would say, lowers a little bit the rarity and uniqueness of this one, especially knowing that this one is also available now at the vendor. But even next to that, for instance, with Legion Remix, they decided to add back the Violet Spellwing, which was the height of the curve achievement mount from Legion, which is something they said previously they would not do. But despite them not doing it, for instance, for Mr. Panoramics and saying they won't do it in the future, they still decided to do that. And I think it sends a signal to players to be just like thinking, why would I ever farm all these rare things that are supposed to be only available during a certain time frame, knowing that Blizzard can actually just decide to bring them back and make them super easy to get in the future. Similar example with Mistopana Remix, we got the August Phoenix, which was a recorded version of all the different Pandaren Phoenix that are mounts that were only available during Mistopana Remix and unique models. And with, again, Mistopana Remix, we got a new color for this mount. And then another example is, for instance, with the Keystone Master Achievement mount from the first season of the War Within. So until now, all these different mounts have always been unique mounts that, even though they had some different colors from one season to another, there was no way to get similar models through other versions of the game. And here with the diamond mech suit, we are actually able to get 2 over of these different models, one through the Dells, and now we're going to be able to get one during the pre-patch event for Midnight, making it way more trivial, even though, again, this is supposed to be one of these rare models and rare mounts that is only limited to a specific time and that is supposed to be challenging. So, as you can see, with all these different things, it creates a lot of confusion in terms of what might be brought back into the game later, what recolors are we getting, what modes will allow me to get these things more easily, and especially the fact that the narrative from Blizzard is always different, one like event from another. For instance, again, they did mention before that they would never bring back anything that was tied to a specific time period, but then they decided to bring the Head of the Curve achievement mount, and then they didn't decide to bring back the Mage Tower weapon. So everyone is confused. Players feel a little bit discouraged to farm all these rewards outside of these modes that just makes everything so easy to get. And players are also discouraged to farm rare and prestigious things because, again, they have the feeling that either some recolors will be made available and it will diminish the uniqueness of your rewards, or simply you will be able to get the same model or the exact same mount later on by other means. So I know in the comments there's probably going to have a lot of people saying, well, why are you like so, attached to like an in-game digital item? Like, who cares at the end of the day? This is just a game. People will cry because, for instance, there is a recolor version of a very rare items they had, or because they decided to make some rare items really easy to get. Doesn't make sense. But I think you need to understand that this is a little bit the basis of these different MMOs, and especially of World of Warcraft. You want to feel that when you're working hard towards something in the game, especially something that is going to require you to spend a lot of time, energy into achieving, that this is not something that will be made trivial in the future, because otherwise, why would you ever invest all this time and energy? Of course, for some people, it's more of a journey experience that they're interested in, but for a lot of players, the rewards are really what drives them. And I think, sadly, the fact that now more and more players feel discouraged because there are more modes and more events that rewards players with all these rare things that don't require you to actually do anything difficult. You can just buy everything from a vendor, or also by simply re-adding things that were removed from the game, or adding recolors version of really rare things difficult to get. I think it just discourages a lot of players, and it just creates less reason for the player base to simply invest some time and energy and passion into the game. But again, please feel free to disagree with me. Overall, my main reason for doing this video is because I do really hope that, as Ian said, they're going to be more careful in the future with the way they approach these things. Of course, you want to make sure players feel like they have ways to sometimes beat a little bit the RNG and to be able to farm all these different things that have been in the game for the past 20 years. But you also don't want to create a system where players always feel like they have to wait for the next remix event in order to farm everything for free, because otherwise it's a waste of time. So let me know again in the comments what you think about all of that, about all these new modes, all these changes. And yeah, overall, if you're happy or not with the new way Blizzard are doing things when it comes to rewards. I will be back very soon with more guides and more videos. And in the meantime, I wish you all a great day. Bye.